Hi everyone, my name is Sherry Mayberry, and you have joined the webinar Exploring the Why Behind Experiences presented by Beth Smith. We have folks from all over, so we're excited that you decided to join us, and thank you so much for taking time out. It is an hour and a half, and we are recording. So for some reason, if you have to leave, you can come back, and we will have it on our homepage probably by tomorrow so that you can come back and review the recording. There's also on the handouts, there's one handout, which is the PowerPoint that Beth is going to be using tonight. It is a PDF file, but she also sent it to you in an email before. So it is there on the under the handout tab. It is also on our homepage, and you should have gotten it in an email. So hopefully everybody should have that file. We're going to try to get started. We've got a lot to do, so we're going to get started quickly, and you will have chances to ask questions, and when you do, you will just need to click on the little question box up in the top right-hand screen and type in your question there, and that's the way we'll be able to communicate with you. Everybody's muted, but please don't hesitate to type in questions whenever you have them, but Beth will be stopping from time to time to ask detailed questions where you'll have a chance to respond. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Beth, and we're going to get started.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. Like Sherry said, my name is Beth Smith. I'm one of the partners with Gee Whiz Education, and tonight we're going to explore the why behind experiences. This is going to be a very interactive webinar, and as Sherry mentioned, there is the question box. There are going to be lots of times when I stop and ask for feedback and for your input, and please, please, please share, because that is how we learn, and how we all learn, not just how children learn. So we want these cohort webinars to be very interactive. We want you to walk away going, wow, I really learned something that I can actually use. And so that is our goal. So at the end of the webinar too, there will be a time for you to share feedback if you want to send us an email and let us know what you thought. Also, I know a lot of you are going to want to know about certificates of attendance, and I will cover that here right now. These are done via Google, and there is a link that I sent to you in an email this afternoon about an hour or so ago, but I'm also going to show you where it is on our website when we get to that point. It's not active yet. It will not be active until actually after the webinar ends. It's a very short assessment, only 10 questions, but that will allow us then to say, yes, you attended the webinar, yes, you completed the assessment, and yes, we can send you a certificate of attendance, which will be, by the way, sent to you via email, and please allow up to a week for that to get to you because we do have a lot of them to process. If you are in Pennsylvania and part of the PD Registry, hopefully you registered through the registry, which will then give you PQAS, if I'm saying that correctly, hours. We are excited to be part of that program. So again, you'll have to do the post-assessment, but then I will go into the registry and say, yes, you attended, yes, you did the assessment, and you will get your hours. So with all that said, big mouthful to start, let's get right into it. The why behind experiences. The purpose of this webinar is to help you connect developmental areas to the activities and experiences that you do with children every day. And this is really, really important. We'll talk about why this is so important as we go through this webinar, but just know that being able to say, I'm doing this activity because these are my goals, these are the areas of development I hope to address, is very, very important as an educator. So let's move on to the first slide and look at this lovely messy fun. I love finger paint. So we're going to jump right into participation. Why would you plan this experience with young children? In other words, if you were planning to finger paint with children, what would some of your goals be? So what I would like you to do is we're going to practice using that question box. You're going to type in your ideas about why you would finger paint with children, and then Cherry's going to read off some of your suggestions to get us started and get us kicked off.
We'll give you a few minutes to get your thoughts together, and hopefully you see that little question box. It's right under the handout tab. Okay. First one is, will you be given certificates, which I think you covered that. Exploring different textures and be creative and have fun. It's a sensory activity. Oh, we got lots of responses. To promote creativity. Helps some kids with texture issues, feel, touch, smell of paint, expressing emotions, textures, sensory texture, color mixing. Those are all good responses to give children fine motor activities, sensory activities for children, and lots of sensory responses.
Excellent, excellent. You guys must have your thinking caps on. Very good. There are lots of reasons why you would do finger painting with children, and we're going to talk about not just finger painting, but different experiences and the 10 developmental areas that are part of early childhood education. So you guys did a great job with your first experience. Congratulations and thank you. So why is the why important? Well, one of the most important reasons is that research shows the strongest connection between beneficial results for children involve what teachers teach and how they teach it. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight. It also helps you set goals and objectives to guide your planning. For instance, let's say you have a child who does have sensory issues. Someone brought that up. I had one of those children. She used to sit in her high chair and go, and hold her hands up because she didn't like dirty hands. And you know what? She's almost 21 years old and she still does not like sticky hands. But it helps you guide planning, right? It helps you know if you have a child that has sensory issues, okay, how can you help them um, learn about their sensory issue, but at the same time, give them the opportunity to try different things and see if it's an issue for them or not. It would be the same if you had a child, for instance, that had a fine motor issue and maybe is working really hard to build fine motor control. Maybe you choose to finger paint with them as a way to build those muscles in the fingers and in the hands. It also invites you to incorporate assessment as part of the process. If you know why you're doing something, I want to help build fine motor skills, or I want to help a child who has sensory processing issues, then you know what you're looking at when you're doing your assessment and your anecdotal notes and you're observing. You know what you're looking for, in other words. It's really hard to evaluate if you don't know what you're looking for. And that also ties in with the next one, which is guiding you and individualizing. And most importantly, it makes learning meaningful to children. There's a purpose behind what they're doing, and play is a big part of that. But as part of play, there's a lot of things that are going on when children are playing, and we're going to talk about that. So identifying the why. First part of that is to think about what your goals are. Whenever you plan an experience with children, regardless of what it is, you need to think about what do you hope to accomplish? What areas of development do you hope to address? What do you hope perhaps an individual child that might be working on a specific skill gains? And that ties into the second one, what areas of development? What are they the same for every child, right? So you may have a child that has phenomenal gross motor skills and can do anything gross motor, but they might be struggling using scissors, right? Or vice versa. You might have a child who has extremely good fine motor skills, but the large motor coordination is just not as strong. And that's not uncommon and is actually totally normal. So just thinking about each individual child and what the goals are for them, it's going to vary from child to child. And it will vary even within that same child from beginning of the year to end of the year. And how do you think this experience will benefit each child? It ties back into the developmental areas and the goals that you've set for them. Do you hope that the children will build vocabulary skills? Do you hope that the children will learn how to handle books the way they're meant to be handled? Do you hope that children will gain a better appreciation for how families are different, or how their community, the different people that work in their community, what role they play and what role their families play in the community? So all of these kinds of things are really important to think about when you're planning experiences for children. Of course, you want them to be engaging. Of course, you want them to be fun, but you have to think about the goals behind them. That's super important. Whoops, sorry, I went too far. Let's go back. So there are 10 areas of development. And in the Gee Whiz curriculum and in most state standards and national standards, such as the Head Start standards, they cover these 10 developmental areas. Different states might name them slightly differently, but believe me, having done alignment charts to almost all of the states in US, they're all very similar. Those 10 areas are language development, literacy development, math knowledge, logic and reasoning, science knowledge, approaches to learning, creative arts, physical development and health, social and emotional development, and social studies knowledge. So we're going to move right into language development. So there are three aspects of language development, which are listening, speaking, which can be verbal, or if you have a child that uses sign language, you can count signing as speaking for them, and nonverbal communication, which toddlers are really good at, pointing and crying and stomping their feet and laying down on the floor. So there's many different aspects of language development. And when you talk about language development, there are pretty much everything that you do every day addresses language development. When you're speaking and the children are listening, you're building their receptive language skills. When you're engaged in a back and forth conversation with children, you're building both receptive and expressive language skills. And keeping in mind that children who are not verbal yet use lots of nonverbal communication to engage with you is very important. So when that toddler is, stomping his feet and throwing himself on the floor, the best thing that you can do actually is describe his or her actions, giving them words and talking about, wow, you look like you're really frustrated or upset, because they will hear the words that you're using to describe their actions and begin to connect the two of those together. So even when a child is pointing for something, let's say they're at the art center and they're pointing towards the red paint, you can give words to that action and say, wow, it looks like you would like me to get you the red paint. Here's the red paint. And then they begin to understand what paint is, what the color red is. And it's a very meaningful way for them to build language skills. So language is really a part of everything that you do every day. It's a part of routine times. It's talking to an infant when you're diapering. It's describing what the children are doing when they're hand washing or brushing their teeth. It's talking about all the foods that you're enjoying during mealtime and the textures of the foods and whether they're hot foods or cold foods or vegetables or fruits or meats or grains. All of that is a wonderful way to help children build vocabulary and language. And even though you might have a bunch of nonverbal children or children who are not using a lot of language yet, the more you expose them to that language, the more language skills they will develop. And then once they are verbal, they will understand what a lot of those words mean. Literacy knowledge. Okay, so this kind of goes hand in hand with language, but not totally. When we talk literacy, we're talking more about books, letters, words, sounds, symbols, writing. Okay, so what in our minds, for those of us like myself that are on the older side of things, we consider what back in the day they called reading. Um, but really, literacy knowledge is so much more than that. And again, it can be interwoven into the experiences that you do every day with children to make it meaningful. Um, One of the best and most important things that you can do is, of course, read to children. Just the fact of how you hold a book, how you turn the pages in a book, the fact that there are words written on those pages and those words can be read are huge ideas for young children. And we take it for granted, right? We know what a word is, we know what a sentence is. We know that everything we say can be written down in words and use letters to do that. But for young children, that is a big, big, big concept. And so the more you expose them to that, the better. It can be something as simple as, let's say you're doing the finger painting we looked at earlier. And after the finger paint dries, you encourage your older children to dictate, something about their painting for you to write on an index card or on the back of the painting, and then you write down what they say. And they watch you write down what they say. And that helps them connect what they're hearing come out of their mouths, the words that they're saying, and the fact that you can take a marker, a crayon, or whatever and write that down. That's a really great way to expose children to letters, to talk about what a word is, to talk about how when you put words together in a specific order, it makes a sentence, and just the big concept that when you talk and you say words, you can write them all down. So that's what literacy knowledge is. Math knowledge encompasses everything you would think of when you think of math, but also some other things you might not think of. Obviously, what a number is, obviously, counting skills, the fact that you can associate a number with a given amount of something. It also encompasses geometry. And when we talk geometry, we're thinking about shapes. We're talking about two-dimensional shapes, three-dimensional shapes, positional concepts, over, under, through, around, between. Those are all positional concepts which all fall under the realm of math knowledge. Patterning, and patterning can be done with physical items. It can also be done with actions. For instance, you might do clapping patterns or stomping patterns or jumping up and down patterns, or you might make patterns with Uniflex blocks or Legos or something like that. And then measurement can be standard and non-standard. So standard measurements, what we all think of when we think of a ruler, a tape measure, or a measuring cup. That's standard measurement. But non-standard is how many blocks tall is the table, and then you would stack blocks and you would figure out how many blocks tall that table is, or how many Unifix cubes or duplex or Duplo blocks or Lego blocks long is my foot. That's a non-standard measurement. You're still measuring, you're just not using a traditional measuring tool. So these things make up math knowledge. There's also something that falls in here called algebraic knowledge. It sounds like, oh my gosh, what the heck is that? And it's actually not as complicated as it seems. That is when you help a children who are more advanced understand that, for instance, 2 plus 3 is 5, but 3 plus 2 is 5, and 4 plus 1 is 5, and 1 plus 4 is 5, and 5 plus 0 is 5. And you do that with real objects. We do some games in the Gee Whiz curriculum where we help children understand algebraic knowledge in a very meaningful way, through might be a game where we're bowling, right? And you have 10 pins, and then you count how many are standing, how many fell down. Well, however many they're standing plus how many ever fell down equals 10. So there's ways to do that with children that are very meaningful and fun, but you're exposing them to the idea of algebraic knowledge. Logic and reasoning, problem solving, reasoning and representation. Problem solving is exactly what it sounds like. You know, children are solving problems all day long. The important thing for you and your role is to talk about the problems that you see them solving and the tools they're using to do that, and not telling them how to solve it, but instead describing how they are solving it. Reasoning is things like when you do a puzzle, figuring out, okay, I have to turn the piece a certain way for it to fit in the hole. That's reasoning. And then representation is something children just do. It's so fun to watch. So for instance, a block might become a car or a telephone, or it might become an iPad, who knows? So representation is when they take an everyday object and they use it in a totally new and different way. And that's representation. Science knowledge, exploring and thinking like a scientist, making and testing predictions, observation and knowledge about the world. Science is where children naturally seem to want to go, because they always want to know why, right? They always want to know how and why and what happens when. And so a lot of the things that children will do, to be honest with you, that might seem like they're doing it to be kind of naughty, it's just their way of testing. You know, a toddler who dumps a glass of water on the floor isn't necessarily doing that to be mean, maybe on the 30th try. But on the first try, they're just fascinated by what happens when they turn that cup upside down and that water goes on the floor. That is really cool to them. So they're thinking like a scientist. They're testing out their world and just to see what will happen. And so making and testing predictions is great, especially with older children that can actually do that verbally and talk about, well, what do you think is going to happen when, and then what did happen, and was it, you know, were your ideas, you know, correct, or were they incorrect, or what was right about them, what was wrong about them, or what happens if you do it in a different way. Observing. Children love things like unbreakable magnifiers and binoculars so they can look at their world up close. It's fascinating to them. So take advantage of that interest that children have in science and build upon that, because it's just a natural thing that young children do. Approaches to learning is curiosity and desire to learn new things, persistence, patience, and cooperation. This is how children approach new situations. We've all been around children that are afraid to try new things. This is part of approaches to learning, not being afraid to try new things. And also the persistence. When something gets tough, did they walk away or did they stick with it? And patience kind of ties in there too. There are a lot of skills that young children have to learn and do learn that require a lot of patience and persistence. One of the first ones is potty training. And I think it probably requires more patience and persistence on the part of the provider or the parent, but it does require that. And same thing when they get a little bit older and they learn to tie their shoe. I know my son struggled with learning to tie his shoes. That was something that he had to work on really hard to learn how to do. So those things that start in even in early childhood, just, you know, you can try again, and just kind of like the little engine that could. I think I can. I think I can. That's kind of what plays into here. And then cooperation is just as children get developmentally older and ready to cooperate with each other, being able to cooperate to complete a task, to play a game, all of those things. Creative arts are exactly what they sound like: music, dance, fine arts, and creative dramatics. Our finger painting would have fallen under the fine arts. That'd be things like painting and making things like craft projects, and where maybe you're using all kinds of random recyclables to create something. Creative dramatics would be dramatic play. Dance and movement obviously is music and movement, and then music might be musical instruments where they're making their own music or responding to music. But creative arts are very important because they're a wide open area for children to express their ideas and even their feelings and emotions. Physical development and health, that's your gross motor skills, big muscles. Think big muscles of your legs, big muscles of your arm, torso. Fine motors are your hands, your fingers. That would be the skills that you need to hold a crayon or a marker, or to hold a paintbrush, to hold a spoon. Safety is just what it says, and knowledge and practice of healthy habits, like the little girl here brushing her teeth, washing your hands, um, using the restroom. Those kind of things are all healthy habits. So these are the 10 areas of development. The last one we're running into here is social and emotional development. And that's a really big one for early childhood. One of the first key outside of the family relationships that a child will build will be with their caregiver. And so your relationship with children is super important. It becomes as important as in many ways as their family. In fact, for those of you who have had children who are infants and they go with you all the way through school age, you are like family. The interactions that children have with you, they have with other adults, they have with each other. Self-concept, do they feel secure enough within themselves to share their ideas and their thoughts? Emotions and self-regulation, that's really important as well. And then character education. Um, there's a lot of different aspects of character education, but in the Gee Whiz curriculum, we view character education, and we have 4 different aspects: respect, responsibility, honesty, and kindness. Those are the 4 that we touch on within our lesson plans and our activities. But you can really choose all the ones that you want there. We just felt those were kind of key. So that is the area of social and emotional development. And then social studies knowledge is knowledge of family and community, cultural differences. If you were with us on our diversity webinar last month, we talked a lot about diversity and cultural differences and how important it is for everyone to feel respected in any program based on all their differences, not just cultural, but every difference that we all have. Caring for the environment, and then history. These are the areas of social studies knowledge. So, when planning experiences, how do you think? Now it's time for you to participate because I've talked too long. How do you think that the 10 developmental areas play into the why behind the activities that you do? So, think about what we just covered, those 10 areas of development, and think about an activity maybe you did today. And how do those tie in? Like, why is it important for you to know about those 10 areas of development as you plan activities? And go ahead and type that in the question box, and then Sherry will read your responses out.
Okay. Plan lessons is one answer. That's why you would have to think about those areas. This one's a little bit harder than the last one. A little bit slower on getting responses. Oh, here we go. Just takes people a while. Seeing where the children need support is a good one. Are the areas promote, all the areas promote the whole child approach and prep for the next level of education?
Absolutely.
We need to know the areas so we can plan our days according to what our children may be not so strong in.
Absolutely. Back to the individualization. Yes.
Planning for each child, back to the individualization. Help the children grow and learn and see where the children may need help.
Hmm.
Curriculum and indoor-outdoor play. Uh,
Definitely.
Teachers are proactive when planning activities. It helps ensure that our teaching is intentional and allows us to meet the children at whatever level they are at.
Exactly.
Need to know them to use them to plan the lessons to make the best practice lessons.
Hmm.
It gives you the ability to see how and where to help each child so he or she can be ready to progress forward. Plan for each child to be successful, I believe, in accordance with each potential. Scaffolding, blueprint for each child. We also can share the info with parents for support at home as well. That's a good one.
Yep.
Um, I think to do different activities and planning is the only way you know how the child is developing. If we notice that a child might need extra intervention so we can help the child. Those are all good. That was
Yes.
great. Once everybody started, took a while to get it. There's a lot more typing this time.
It is a lot more timing. You guys are really on the ball tonight. Absolutely. All the things that you said are exactly true. It's
There's one
just
more. I
okay,
just
go
want to
ahead.
share that the children began to learn and fortify pathways in the brain and just understanding the development of children. But I like that pathways in the brain. All right,
It
that's
it
it.
is thank you. It is amazing the brain development that goes on in the first 5 years of life. And absolutely, all of the things that you shared are so important. When we look at children, we need to look at the whole child. And unfortunately, too often when they hit public school or private school, when they hit kindergarten, first grade, it seems like in today's world, we focus so much on just their cognitive or their intellectual side, and we kind of forget about the rest of it. But it's so important to know kind of where they are all the way across the board. I know, for instance, with my daughter, she was an early reader. She was extremely, the literacy, the language development was very strong for her, but she'd never been super strong in math. It's just not been her thing. And so I think that knowing where each child is, it helps you really to, as someone mentioned, not just plan the experiences, but also scaffold them. So as you see a child progressing, you can kind of up the ante and make it a little more challenging as you go on. Excellent job. All right, so here we have a little girl playing in the leaves, which I really do hope at some point we can do soon, but the weather's been a little warm here. So what areas of development do you think can be addressed during this experience? And I want you to look at all 10 of them, okay? And I want you to pick one, because we have a lot of people on the webinar. Just pick one and then write in the question box which area you chose. So for instance, maybe you choose math knowledge and how playing in the leaves could help with math knowledge. So you pick the area that you want to do, put that area, and then put how it would develop that area. And obviously there could be a whole group of children playing in the leaves. This just happens to be a picture of a really cute little girl having a wonderful time.
This is going to take also a few more minutes because by the time you type in the activity, so I'll give you some time. We had some eager beavers. We had science knowledge, but we didn't have the activity. So we can come back and you can share that activity, what you were thinking about there. Okay. Okay. Now, Beth, you did want like an activity around the area, right?
Yeah, let me give you an example. So for instance, let's say I did choose math knowledge, right? Let's say that's my area. I would say that each child, you could give them a paper bag and they could gather leaves in that paper bag. And then when you go inside, you could count the leaves in the bag, you could sort the leaves by type or by color. So that's just to give you an example.
Okay. Now we've got one language development and we've got discussed the various colors. Science, now we got it. Science knowledge because the child is directly in contact with nature. Leaves, why do they fall or dry out? So the only thing we're missing there is the area. It
Sounds
be a
like
lot of different
science.
area. Yeah, yeah. The kids love to use leaves for art and counting. So
Hmm.
we got math and science, exploring nature, touching, hearing, and talking, and about why the leaves are in or on the ground. Science knowledge, nature, color, counting, Science knowledge, learning about how and why leaves change colors and fall off the trees. Language development, what are you playing with? How do they feel? So
Mm-hmm.
science, senses, feel, smell, pile them high, and jump, feel them as we jump. Okay, I'm gonna get physical, large motor, pile them up and jump in them.
Mm-hmm.
Creative, pretend, play, and grass. Sensory, the feel and pretending. If it's a repeat, I'm going to keep going. Let's see. Science, what happened during the seasons? Why do leaves fall? Why do they change colors, etc.? Physical development, running through the leaves, feeling the leaves, what it feels like. Small motor, pick up individual leaves without breaking them. That's
Mm.
physical development and health. Watering leaves in piles and seeing who can jump, how far can they jump, importance of washing hands after playing outdoors and
Uh-huh.
dressing appropriately.
Very good.
Um, Physical health, she could throw them up or stomp on them on the ground. She could grab them, large armfuls, and carry the large armfuls. Math knowledge, counting, sorting colors, size, shape, glue them on a graph to see which has more. Art, leaf prints,
Mm-hmm.
and social and emotional, how you feel jumping in them. Those are all good.
Excellent. I'm going to give you guys
Yeah.
a task now. How about literacy? Can anybody think of something you can do related to literacy and playing in the leaves?
We've got another creative art, just color a fall and happy emotions. Oh, science, look with magnifiers for bugs on them. So nothing on literacy yet.
It's a tougher one.
Yeah.
I can think of something, but I'm not going to share it quite yet.
You can make a book of leaves and label them. There
Yes, you
you go.
could. Very good. And as you do that, you can label them however the children decide to label them. So they might say red leaf, they might say crunchy leaf, they might say bumpy leaf, and you can label them whatever words the
Mhm.
children say and then talk about the letters as you do that. Another literacy idea, especially if you're working with really little ones, that's lots of fun, is pile up the leaves and then sit in the leaves and read books about fall or
That
about
we
trees.
And we've got a few more. Singing a song.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
have them write a story about the leaves.
Mm-hmm.
And literacy, read books that relate to leaves.
Right.
Ooh, bunch more. Describing feeling textures, reading stories about leaves, learning words related to to the leaves. Literacy development,
Excellent.
different types of leaves.
Excellent. All right, we did not do logic and reasoning. Now remember what logic and reasoning was? Logic and reasoning is problem solving and it's representation where you use something as something else and pretend. Um, can anybody come up with an idea for logic and reasoning related to playing in the leaves?
Okay. We're still getting some literacy. You can
That's
read books
okay.
about leaves. Read a book about leaves. Logic and reasoning. Logic and reasoning. When and why leaves change colors. Right with literacy, you can explore the leaves and then use a book in the child care to relate to what they saw outside.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What the leaves look like in comparison to other objects.
Ooh.
Yeah. Smooth to crunchy. Um, Pretend they are feathers and blow on them and see how far it would go.
Ooh, that's fun. That's also a lot of
Yeah.
science. And you
Logic
get
and re
math.
Yeah, logic and reasoning stuff leaves into bag and making a leaf man.
Fun. Then that would tie it in with creative arts.
Yeah, those are all good.
There's also a fun game that you can play with children where you match a leaf to a tree. So you would need to gather the leaves ahead of time. So you had one leaf from each tree or bush in your backyard or side yard or park or wherever you're going to go to do this. And then the children have to figure out which leaf matches to which tree. How about social
Uh,
studies? Social studies is, remember, families, communities, caring for the environment, and history. Any ideas for social studies?
um, one more response. It's raining leaves, collection of leaves to create different play items.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Yeah. Do you have trees in your house or at your house?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely social set. Using the leaves in a compost.
Oh.
Different areas change seasons at different times.
Mm-hmm.
Over there.
Right, because you
Okay.
may live in a state like Florida, right, where you don't have a change of seasons like someone in, say, Vermont. That is where you can use technology to help expose the children to what it means for the leaves to change. We try to build links to those kinds of things into our curriculum, but the web has an amazing amount of resources where you can find a very short, simplistic video that would show the change of leaves to a child that maybe has never seen that before, right?
One or two more. Keeping the community clean by just raking the leaves, taking care of your community. How
Hmm.
old do you think the tree is? Um, talk about where trees grow and don't grow. These are all good answers.
Excellent, excellent. Very good. Okay, we're going to move on from the leaves because we've got more to do. And here were just a few that I came up with. For language development, building both receptive and expressive language skills as well as vocabulary, asking open-ended questions. And this is actually a whole other webinar, but what do you like about playing in leaves? An open-ended question is one where there's not a right or a wrong answer. And the goal behind that open-ended question is twofold. One, to get the children thinking, but also to get that back and forth conversation going. Science knowledge, we talked about, you guys brought this up, the senses to explore how the leaves feel, smell, sound. Math knowledge, comparing and contrasting, counting, how are they the same? Um, this is a good open-ended question. How many leaves do you think were on that tree? It'd be very interesting to see what the children come up with. Social studies, sharing information about the family. Do you have trees in your yard? Someone brought that up with red leaves, orange leaves, yellow leaves. Approaches to learning, working together. How big do you think the pile of leaves will get if we all work together to make it? That would also tie in with social and emotional if they're working together to achieve a goal. Obviously, if you're working with toddlers, that's not going to turn out like it would if you were working with 4-year-olds, and that's developmentally appropriate. Toddlers are not ready to work cooperatively as a group. They might need their own personal leaf pile. Excellent. All right, so we're going to try it again. Here we have a little guy playing with colored blocks. What developmental areas is this child addressing as he plays with blocks? Now you notice I did not give you those 10 areas. If you have the handout, you can help use that as help and guidance. And if not, you have to challenge your brain to actually think really hard to remember all 10 of them. But in the question box on this one, I want you to think about this child and what he's doing just during play and what areas of development is he addressing just playing? Like, you have not planned this experience. This is free play. What areas of development is this child working on as he plays with these blocks?
Okay. Creative, math, logic and reasoning, and fine motor, physical development, fine motor and exploratory, language, math, learning colors, math building, logic and reasoning, physical, math and science, logic and reasoning, cognitive, exploring different shapes, creative, being creative with design and fine motors, picking up blocks, gross motor skills, math, logic and reasoning, creative arts, math, creative arts, and physical, math concept, logic, small motor, creative, math, social and emotional, spatial awareness, approaches toward learning,
Mm-hmm.
social emotional, not throwing them at his friend. I love that one. That is so
Blocks stay on
true.
the table or
As
on
I
the
keep
floor.
two grandsons, that seems to be in the back of one of them's mind. Approaches to learning. Okay. Okay. That's
All
good.
right. Excellent. So there are a lot of different ideas there, and they are all really great ideas. The key is to recognize that when children are engaged in free play, they are learning in many different areas. Um, One that I don't know was mentioned here necessarily was science, because while they may not be making and testing predictions out loud, exactly that's what they're doing, because he's predicting if I put that block on there, it's going to stay. Um, and that's the goal, right? And if it doesn't stay and the blocks fall over, then it's cause and effect, right? I didn't have a strong enough base, or I put too many blocks on and it got too heavy and it fell over. So science would also be a big part of playing with these blocks as well. And if you really thought about it, there's probably a lot of other areas that you could touch on that are part of this. Even like somebody just said about throwing the blocks, which ties in also with safety, right? That there's a right way to use the blocks, and throwing them is not the right way. So anyway, yeah, the great job. That's the whole point of this, is for you to see that even when the children engage in free play, they're addressing many different developmental areas. And part of that too is if you're observing and doing your anecdotal notes, you'll be able to note, for instance, if this child was struggling to stack these blocks, that fine motor control might not be an area that this child is maybe an area that he needs some reinforcement. But it looks like from this picture right here, he's doing quite well. So fine motor might be something that he's more advanced for his age. So children can be all over the place, and it can change, seems almost momentarily, where their level of development can be in different areas. Excellent. Okay, so now we're going to flip it again. Now this time I'm giving you a material, something you probably all have in your closet, your pantry, your cupboard, or paper plates or plastic plates. Paper and plastic plates come in all different shapes, sizes, and patterns. So what experience could you plan using these plates? And what would the why behind the experience be? So I know that's a lot to type. So, come up with one thing that you could do with the plates. And then you can note, okay, my why would be pick one area of development. Because we know now, having done this activity a couple times, that regardless of what activity you do, there's going to be there's going to be a numerous developmental areas you're going to address. So pick an activity, come up with something you could do, and then just pick one of the developmental areas that you could address and say how you would do that. So if it is, maybe I'm thinking for older children, arranging these by size from the largest to the smallest, or the smallest to the largest. My area would obviously be math knowledge, and then it would be seriation. So think about what you would do, and then put it in the question box what your activity is, and then just pick one area, because otherwise, poor Sherry, she'll be reading all night.
I'm sorry. First one, I have to remember to unmute myself. Math, patterning and counting, shapes, sizes, and color recognition. Math, measurements. Creative arts, create a circle collage. Cognitive talk about size and color. So covering several different areas there. Math, count them, sort by size, sort by if there is white on the plate or not. So color. Creative arts, or in dramatic play, making animal mask and then singing "Old MacDonald Had a Farm." Math, color and shape mobile. So a lot of math.
I want to see him sing
Okay.
Old MacDonald Had a Farm, because that'd be really cute.
Yes. Math, big, medium, little. So again, with size. Physical, using them as frisbees, like
Ah,
that. Um,
fun.
Math, patterning, counting, measuring, sizing, amount of pictures. And creative art, making a caterpillar.
Oh,
That's good. Those are all good. So a lot of different areas, just using the same items. Okay, that's good. Oh, logic and reasoning. Why are the sizes different and colors different?
good question. That's a good
Uh,
open-ended question.
yeah. Math by putting numbers on the plate for counting, writing the numbers, and putting dots to symbolize the number. Arts, make a musical instrument.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Math, counting and learning different colors.
Mm-hmm.
Lots are coming in. Language, let's see, have a discussion comparing the plates. So, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. All right, let's go through some we didn't hit on. Literacy knowledge. Now remember what that is? That's books, that's letters, words, writing. What could you do related to literacy knowledge? And you might have to think about older children for this. See what you can come up with.
We do have one with social and emotional, Beth, that just came.
Okay,
Various
cool.
mood faces. Various mood faces.
Ah, yeah.
Drawing. Approaches to learn. I'm going to go ahead and
Go ahead, keep going.
because I
Yeah.
can only see a few at a time.
Yep.
Approaches to learning, fill in the different textures of the plates.
Mm.
Music, uh, pass the plate to light with musical chairs.
Ah,
Okay.
okay.
Sight words on the plates. Alphabet soup by drawing letters. Talk about circle objects you see in the environment. Read books with circles.
Mm-hmm.
Used for feeling and emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Use plates to make a book. You can definitely do that.
Yes, you can definitely do that.
Okay. Those are all good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, you really have your thinking caps on, and that's great. The whole point of this is to think about how my goal for you was to realize that when you, for instance, have a conglomeration of paper plates, there are many, many developmental areas that you can address with a simple thing like a paper plate. And in fact, in one experience, you're going to end up addressing more than just one developmental area. And that's really important. That's a big concept and a big understanding for you as an educator that what might seem simple on the front end is really much more complex than that, because you're really addressing a lot of different developmental areas. All right, I'm going to pause right here before we go in from the PowerPoint into some of our lesson plans to do some more practice. I want to see if there are any questions about anything that was covered during this PowerPoint that I can answer before I leave this, and then move on. And again, you all should have a copy of this. If you don't, it's in the download box right here on the webinar that you can download it. This will be recorded, so if you happen later on to be listening to the recording, obviously it won't be in the download box, but it will be on our website under our video gallery. There will be a button to download the PowerPoint. So any questions right now about any of this content that was in this PowerPoint that I could answer at this point?
One response, no questions. That's great. No questions at this time, Beth. But
All right.
if you get started, I'll share it with them, with
Okay.
everyone.
All right, well, I'm going to keep it moving because I know everybody's tired also at this time of night. All right, so I'm going to escape out of here. Give me 1 second to close out my PowerPoint, and I'm going to go to our website. I know that on this webinar, because I've looked over the registration list when I was sending emails, that we have a lot of people on here that are customers. Thank you for being customers. We're glad you could join us tonight. I do know we also have quite a few people who are not customers. And thank you for joining us as well. And we also have some quality specialists who are trainers on here. So to all of you, thanks for joining us. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take what we just learned about the developmental areas, and we're actually going to go into our lesson plans in the Gee Whiz curriculum. We're going to practice some more of what we just learned, because one of the reasons that Gee Whiz does the things the way we do is we believe strongly in this concept that with one activity, it's going to cover multiple developmental areas. For instance, in our curriculum, you would never see an activity that just says science or art or gross motor, because every activity that you do is going to cover different developmental areas, just like we saw in the PowerPoint. So I'm on our website, geewizeducation.com, and I'm actually going to sign in because I want to go to the lesson materials for right now that we have up on our website. For those of you who are not customers, it's a very simple procedure to do this if you remember your password, which I hope I do. Let's see. All right, and I know we have some people on here who are new, so hopefully if you're new, you figure this out. But once you log in, there's a tab that appears called GWE Customers, and this is where I'm going to go right now to get into one of our teaching guides. I want to practice some more what we just learned in our, oh, excuse me, I didn't mean to go that fast. What we just learned in our PowerPoint presentation, and I'm actually going to use our September unit, My Home, Your Home. And we have English and we have some Spanish files, but I do not speak Spanish, so we're going into the English ones. And we're going to go into our lesson plans. So in the Gee Whiz curriculum, to make things easier for you to link those developmental areas to our lesson plans, we use these picture symbols. And I would encourage you, if you are adding to our curriculum or creating some of your own experiences, to use something similar that works for you. This is a twofold reason. One, it forces you to think about when you're doing an experience, when you're planning an experience, okay, what are my goals? What areas am I going to address? But it also, if you are participating in a QRS program or you have state standards, which everybody does that they're required to address, it then provides you with documentation of how you're addressing the developmental areas. Like I said, when I created the alignment charts for the different states, pretty much all of them cover the same 10 areas. They might name them something slightly different, but all in all, it's the same areas. So what we've done is we have a different symbol we use for each area of the 10. And you can see these right here. And then what we do in our lesson plans is we link those to our activities. And that way you can see at a glance what areas of development you're going to address in the experience. So let me give you an example of that. I'm just going to scroll past the grid. And I'm actually going to go to the second. There's 2 pages for each set of lesson plans. For those of you who are not familiar with what we do, we start with an exploring together, which is kind of like a circle time, but it's more of a hands-on experience where the children are engaged and exploring with you. And I'm going to look instead at one of our small group experiences. So we're going to look at a home for a family. Okay, and you're going to see up here at the top where we have a list of these picture codes. All right, and I'm going to get you started and then we're going to practice. Because like I said, even if you're not a Gee Whiz customer and you're writing your own lesson plans, using some type of a system like this to help you delineate what areas you're addressing is a very good idea and a great way for you to make sure you're addressing all different areas every day. So the speech bubble is language development. The smiley face is approaches to learning. This is logic and reasoning, math knowledge, physical development and health. Oops, I put logic and reasoning twice. I do that sometimes. Creative arts and social and emotional. Okay. And in this experience, if you want to just glance through here, we're going to be using a folding table and blankets and sheets and clothespins to make a home, quote unquote. And we're going to include some dolls and plush animals. Obviously, if you're working with toddlers and twos, threes and fours and advanced preschoolers, the way that they approach this is going to be differently. And in our curriculum, when we say toddlers, twos, threes, fours, and advanced preschoolers, we're talking about a developmental age and not a chronological one, because we all know that 2 toddlers are not the same developmentally. So what I encourage those of you who are customers on the webinar right now to do is to read the different options and choose for each child the one you think will work the best, and or add some of your own. So anyway, what I want you to do is I want you to read through here, and it's actually very quick and simplistic because we are going to be talking about building a house and then playing in it. So keeping in mind that at the top of the chart there, at the top of the activity, I have the picture codes for language, approaches to learning, logic and reasoning, math knowledge, physical development and health, and oops, sorry, another logic and reasoning, creative arts and social and emotional. I want you to pick one of those areas and in the question box say how you think this experience of building a home, quote unquote, with a folding table and blankets would address that particular area. So you might choose logic and reasoning. You would say logic and reasoning because da 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 da, or language because da 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 da. And you can type that in the question box. So we're just going to practice a little bit more about what it means to have one experience addressing multiple areas.
It's going to take just a minute. We'll give you plenty of time. Okay, physical, building the house and using clothespins.
Excellent.
Logic and reasoning, building the house, just figuring out how to do it.
Exactly.
Okay. Language, they can talk about what they are doing, use different ideas, and talk about what their home looks like. So you cover lots of different areas, that not only language in that discussion. Language, they need to be able to talk with each other to be able to work together to get things done. So that's also approaches to learning and not only
Social and
language.
emotional. Yep. Yep.
Social studies, children can discuss their families and their family dynamics.
Exactly.
Logic and reasoning, building houses based on their experience and knowledge. Oh,
Maybe
social and emotional, who lives in a house? Because everybody may not live in a house.
exactly.
Logic and reasoning, why are you building the house and what materials are being used? I work with toddlers, so small motor with the clothespins. I also think this would be great for social and emotional, working together. And language, where do you live? Apartment, home, etc., etc. Social studies, who lives with you?
Exactly. And that's why we did this at the beginning of this unit, because it's very important for children to build that knowledge that not everybody lives in a two-story house. And some people might live in a condominium, or they might live in a mobile home, or they might live in an apartment.
Literacy, play out the Three Little Pigs.
I love the Three Little
Okay.
Pigs. That would be fun. And that would also tie
Okay.
in if you read the book, The Three Little Pigs, too. They could build the house different ways depending on whether they're building it with sticks or straw or bricks.
Okay. Those are the more coming in. That those are all good.
Excellent. The idea is that, thinking outside the box about all the different areas that they're going to develop as they play and they do something as simple as building a house with a folding table and some blankets. You could also get into science if they are using different types of sheets or blankets, which work better, because as you know, some things are more slippery and some things have more texture, some things have more weight, which ones work better. What happens if they keep falling off? What are you going to do? Well, you have to find something that's a little heavy to put on top. What's that going to be? Is it going to be a block? Is it going to be a book? So problem solving there too. And then I really like everything that everyone said regarding social studies. And again, that's why we put this at the beginning of the unit, was to help open that door for conversations about the fact that, hey, not everybody lives in the same kind of house. And that's what makes the world a wonderful place. So excellent. Great job. All right, I'm going to move on. And I'm going to pick another one, but this time it's not going to be as easy. Or maybe it is. You guys are really on top of things. Okay, so I'm going to cover this up as best I can. Yep, I'm going to cover it right there. So on the right-hand side, we had an activity called Family Crowns. You can see the materials that we have suggested, which are gingerbread man cookie cutters, different colors of flesh tone paint, wide headband. And again, we have options for different age groups that they can do. And when we set up these experiences in Gee Whiz, it doesn't mean this is the only way you're going to do them. We encourage you to set up the environment, and then we give you ideas on how different children might approach it, but they can take it in a whole other way as well. We want it to be wide open. So in this experience, they're going to make a crown that represents their family. Now, obviously, your toddlers, twos, and even your young threes are not quite developmentally ready yet to represent their families using art. They're just going to have fun playing with the cookie cutters and the paint. And that's okay. That's exactly what you want them to do. But what I want you to do is think about all the different developmental areas the children could address as they made family crowns. And I want you to list as many of those as you can in the question box. Now, Sherry will not be able to read all of them off, but she will read them off as they come in, and we'll see if we can hit on all 10. So that's our goal, is can we hit on all 10? I don't even know that I hit on all 10 when I put them in there, because sometimes I don't list them all because I run out of space. But let's see if we can. Let's see how many of the 10 we can hit on. And Sherry, I'll keep track of the different ones. I'll use my fingers.
Okay. Beth, there is a question out there that I just want to know if you're going to touch on the um, October curriculum before the end
Yes,
of the night.
yes,
Okay, good.
yes.
Okay. Nothing yet, but we'll give you a few minutes. Okay, language development, literacy, math, logic, approaches to learning, creative art, physical development, and social studies. Did you count all those?
I got 8 so far. Only 2 more left. One might have been social and emotional
Logic and
development.
reasoning and social studies. Logic and reasoning, language, literacy, social studies, social and emotional.
Okay, I think we have one left.
Creative arts, physical growth,
It's probably literacy.
and math, art, language. I think you're right.
I think it's literacy.
Well, you know what? That's my fault. It was the very first one had language development and literacy.
Then you hit them all 10.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great job. And
Okay.
I bet if I scroll up, I didn't even have them all. Let's see. I had
Uh,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I missed something. What
thank
did I miss? I think I missed. I don't know what I missed. Now I'm stumped. Oh, literacy. I missed literacy. I actually didn't miss literacy though, because I did remember I put it down here. Then dictate the names of their family members for you to write next to the people figures. So again, I probably ran out of space. It happens. So the goal here was for you to be able to read and experience, because when you're planning, that's what you're doing, right? You're thinking, hey, I want to do this experience, and then these are the areas I'm going to develop. And so it's a natural progression to think about, okay, there's the experience, and oh wow, I'm going to address all these different areas of development when I do this. We're going to do one more, and then I know we have people on the line who are customers who want to see the October materials, and I do have some new components I just want to touch on for all of you on the call. We've been making some big additions to the curriculum and to our user's guide in particular, and I just want to point those out. So we'll do one more. All right. So we're going to do this one a little bit differently. So what we're doing, I'm going to pick a day where let's see, which one do I want to pick? Just bear with me. Okay, so where do families live? The focus of this day in the Gee Whiz curriculum was different types of homes, and what we were talking about just a minute ago, right? Where we were talking about how not everybody lives in a house. People live in different types of structures and shelters, and they could live in many different places. So what I would like you to do right now is you're going to come up with your own activity. I want you to think about, if your focus of the day was where do families live, What would you do? What was an activity that you would do with your children, and what areas of development would that activity address? And you don't need to list them all. You can just list like a couple of them. But come up with an experience that you would do with your group that you think would be fun for them to do, and then detail what areas of development you would address if you did that experience. Keeping in mind that your focus of the day is where do families live?
Whoops, sorry. We already have one. Language. Talk about who is in your family. Cognitive. Count how many people are in your family or the size, tallest, shortest. Creative. Being creative with your design. Social. Talking to one another and having fun together. Fine motor. Picking up the pieces. And social studies. Talking about the family where they live. Okay. Sharing pictures and books of homes from not only here in the US, but around the world. Art, make your own home and talk about what you're doing and how everyone's house is different.
Mm-hmm.
Build build popsicle houses, excuse me, build a neighborhood with blocks and name
Mm-hmm.
them with cards. Creative, get a large box and let kids decorate it.
Oh, they love that.
Yeah. Build homes with different types of blocks. Creative art, popsicle art. Literacy, three little bears, three little pigs, and different types of homes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Making houses with Play-Doh. Social studies, studying creative arts. Um, what does your home look like? Draw a picture of your home and who lives in your home.
Mm-hmm.
Social studies, living in mountains, near the ocean, or the desert.
That's a great way to tie in geography.
Um, Social interaction with one another, arranging families from the oldest to the youngest, or from the biggest person to the smallest person, littlest person. Literacy, read about other homes and then make one. Walk around your community and take different pictures of different homes. Have children bring in pictures of their homes. Um, Talk about animal homes also. Draw a picture of your family and use a cardboard box to display it. Cut out pictures of different homes and put them on blocks and use them in the block area.
That's a
Well, those
great
are
idea.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, and Google Images is a great help in that. If you haven't used that, you can pretty much Google any image that you want and find it and print it out, put it on. If it's too big to fit on a block, you can stuff a food box with old newspaper and tape the top shut, and then tape the picture on the side, and they can use that.
Okay. We don't have any more in, so I think we're good.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. And somebody mentioned about videos. One of the things we do is we take time to do that research for you in Gee Whiz. So, for instance, here is a link. Somebody talked about different homes from around the world. It's exactly what this video is about. When we put these links in, they're very short. I'm talking like under 5 minutes, meant for children. And it's just our way of using technology in a meaningful way. It's a great way to expose children to things that otherwise they might not experience firsthand. Another example of that would be, let's say we're talking about elephants. Obviously, you might not live near a zoo or a place where you could go see an elephant. And so seeing elephants in the wild is more powerful anyway. And a lot of times things like websites like Nat Geo Kids will have really short educational videos for children to help them expose them to things like elephants. So that's just a tool we do to help make your life a little bit easier. All right, great job. So now I know we did have a question about the October units. So for those of you who are customers, the October units were just posted. We're doing our best to get them posted on the 20th, both of them, which is a change up from the way we did do things. This is the September one, My Home, Your Home. I'm going to go back. Here was the the October units are listed up here. So one is a community is, and the other is a kaleidoscope of colors. As always, we have the English and the Spanish files, and I'll just go into the English for those of you, because I do know we have some new. But this is a great unit as well to practice integrating all those different areas, particularly your social studies, because we're talking about community helpers. Um, I'll go into the teacher's guide just briefly and show you what some of the topics are. I'm going to pass the table of contents. There's our picture codes in case you forget, and our planning grid. So we're talking about a lot about what a community is, and we start with talking about the community inside your program because that is a community. I call it the learning community. And then from there we move out and talk about different helpers in the community. This is an excellent unit to tie in families, which is what we talked about in our home, your home last month, to build upon that and then talk about families and where they work and the jobs that they hold, invite them in if they're willing to come in, and or even like take pictures of where they work and the job that they do. So this whole unit is all about the community and building that community outward. So they start inward and they were about my family and my home. Now we're building outward. We're going out from that to our learning community within your program, and then from that out into the community in which they live. So these are just the files that go with this unit. And those of you who are customers know about how to download those. And then our second unit for October, again, is called Kaleidoscope of Colors. And this unit is all about color, but not just like we're going to spend a day on red and a day on blue and a day on green. It's not like that at all. It's more about color in our world, and we do talk about primary and secondary colors and how when you mix colors together it makes new colors, but we also talk about things like the colors of food, the colors of the clothes we wear, the colors in nature. There's a lot of different topics that are covered in this unit, so it is not just simply let's just talk about a color a day. It's more about color in our world, if that makes any sense. So again, English files here and Spanish files there. Okay. Those of you who are not customers, everything we do at Gee Whiz is online on our website. We don't ship anything. So whenever you need to download things, you come to our website and you download and save them to the computer. We also encourage you to back them up to the cloud or to a flash drive. Right now is a great time if you're not a customer to become one, because normally there's just 2 units up, but we're in what we call the crossover time frame. So if you scroll down, the My Home, Your Home, which we were just in, is still available, and so is Dancing to the Beat, which was a fun unit about music and movement and dance around the world, and it was it was a fun one to write actually. So these two, the dancing and the My Home, Your Home, will be available until October the 5th. Okay, so if you subscribe right now, you actually have access to 4 different units, each of which has its teacher's guide and all the parts and pieces that go with it. After the 5th, the September units will disappear. And the reason for that is because if we kept everything up on our website since we've started Gee Whiz, it would crash. There's just no way. The files are just too long. There's just too much. There's too many images. They're just huge files. So on the 5th, these 2 will disappear. Now the beauty is with Gee Whiz, nothing's dated. I don't know if you noticed in the lesson plans, but it's like day 1, day 2, day 3, day 2, day 4, day 5, etc. So they're not dated. You could really use these anytime you wanted to. So right now there are 4 units available, but remember, and current customers as well, remember if you have not downloaded and saved what you need, please do that so that we encourage you to do it as soon as it's posted. That way you have it and don't have to worry about something happening that you can't get at it for some reason, because we know Wi-Fi does go down. So anyway, saving them to your computer as soon as they're uploaded. That's just a good reminder for everyone. So what I want to do right now is I'm going to scroll up to the top because I do want to point out for all the people on this call some new components that we've added to the curriculum, which actually build on what we just talked about in the Why Behind Experiences. If you go under our support, we have a new tab called Training Guides. And the training guides are super important because, and these are available to everybody. You do not need to be a customer to get to these training guides, by the way. The user's guide has everything I just talked about in more detail about the 10 developmental areas in it. So if you go to this page, go into the document, which is quite extensive, and it's got even more so because I added a lot of content. So if you're an existing customer, you might want to take a look at what's new in here. Um, but there's a whole section in here called Developmental Areas and Learning Indicators, which walks you through, again, in more detail than my PowerPoint, what language development is and what it looks like for different ages. So if you want more information on that, I would encourage you to come to this guide and go to section 3. For those of you who have been with us, and there's some new information in here regarding the needs, meeting the needs of all children with Gee Whiz, cultural responsiveness, linguistic responsiveness, children with disabilities, suspected delays, or special needs. There's also some new components added in, printables added in here as well to help in this area particularly. And then we just loaded this new book, Parent Involvement and Family Engagement and Gee Whiz. This is also brand new. Um, Anyone is, again, welcome to download this, but it talks in there about what is the difference between parent involvement and family engagement and how you can work to get parents involved and engaged in your program. And then the learning environment in Gee Whiz ties in with some of the components that we offer in the curriculum, but also gives you some good information about your role in the environment, what the learning environment is, why it's so important to have, for instance, open-ended questions and conversations going on. This is a guide that was designed to help you prepare for FICRS or CLASS, whichever environmental rating system you are used in your area, because we know it varies. So anyway, those are some new things that are added to our website. And we're getting close to, I believe, the end. I want to spend a few minutes just talking about what where you're going to go after this is over to do the post assessment, and then I want to ask for questions and any feedback at the end. But right down here, if you scroll, there's this button that says watch videos to learn more. Don't panic when you push that. It's not going to like start playing some video. If you scroll down, here's the one we're on right now. You'll see the big green button for handout. That's where you would go to get this PowerPoint presentation PDF if you did not get it already. And this big purple button that says post assessment. But if you click that right now, guess what? It's going to say it's not accepting submissions. When we're done with this webinar, as soon as we wrap up, I will go out and I will activate the post assessment. So you can just go to our video gallery, click on the purple button, and it should take you right there. I did send the link in an email earlier today, but this is easier if you just come here. But just give me like a few minutes once we end to be able to go out there. I have to log in to activate it. And then, like I said, once it's activated, you can do the post assessment. If you're listening to this on a recording after we've already done this webinar and it's posted, obviously that assessment will be active. Again, you'll need to do the assessment, and then just know that your certificate of attendance will come via email, and it'll be somewhere seven days or so, working days, until that comes to you. If after 7 working days it still hasn't shown up, let us know. If you're in the PD registry, then I will go in and I will cross-reference that you did the post assessment, and then I will mark off that you have attended the webinar and that you did the post assessment. Yes, Sherry.
And just to remind them that to review this webinar, to listen to the recording, you come right here, and where you have that picture of the, if you scroll up, yeah, right there, that will then be a link to the YouTube with the webinar. So you won't need to go in through the registration, but you can review the webinar right there or share that with anyone else you would like to share it with.
It'll look like this. This was our one
Yeah.
we just did in August. So if you were not with us in August and you'd want to do this one, this was our diversity one I mentioned a little bit ago. There's the post assessment for that and the handout for that as well. Okay. So with that all said, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to open it up to any questions that anyone might have regarding, the 10 developmental areas, the why behind the experiences, any questions anyone has about anything that I covered during this entire webinar.
Can you repeat where we can go to get the certificate?
Yes, so you're going to go to geewizeducation.com, okay? you're going to scroll down past this little introduction to this big pink button, which you're going to click, and another page will open, and you're just going to scroll down, and you're going to see post-assessment. Here's the why behind experiences, which we're doing right now. But if you click here right now, it's not going to say it's accepting submissions because I have to activate it. So as soon as we end the webinar, I will activate it. So again, just go to our homepage, go to the video gallery, and then it'll be right there in purple.
There's a question, can you do last month's webinar and get a certificate? Yes, but you
Yes.
will need to do the post-assessment after you listen, which the link is right there.
Right. And for those of you in Pennsylvania, this one is not in the registry yet, the diversity one. We literally just this webinar we're doing tonight is the first one we've done for the registry, but we hope to put this one in, and then all of our future ones will go in as well.
So does your program help you work with all ages or certain ages? Because I have different age groups that I care for. And
Yeah.
yes, you didn't cover it on this one, but the activities are tiered or multi-leveled
Yeah,
for
the lesson
toddlers. Go ahead.
exactly. The lesson plans cover all ages. There's an infant experience every day, and then we level the small group experiences for toddlers through advanced preschoolers. There's even school age experiences in the back, and then the exploring together works for everybody. So that was actually the goal behind Gee Whiz when we started the company, was to create a curriculum for mixed age groups, for family child care providers that had mixed age groups. That said, we are planning to do a webinar next Thursday. Is that right, Sherry?
Yeah,
Okay.
Thursday at 7:30.
Yeah, at 7:30, and it's going to be an overview of Gee Whiz. So it's going to be one that will not it will not be in the PD registry, but it will be one that is for wanting to learn more about all the components, wanting to learn more about the curriculum, how it works, kind of a nuts and bolts of Gee Whiz. That's going to be next Thursday. We have not put out the announcement yet, but keep an eye on your email because it should be coming very shortly.
I am just really working on learning how to keep my questions open-ended. Are most of the questions in the lesson plan considered open-ended?
Yeah,
Yeah,
let me show. I'm just going to go there real quick since we have some questions about that. Under the 1-day sample lesson plan, I can show you. We build open-ended questions into the lesson plans. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this just to show you how we do that. With each experience, you're going to see some questions to ask over here. And for instance, this one says, what do you see on the box? Okay, that's more of a closed-end question, but follows up with, what do you think those words say? How does the mail carrier know where to deliver a package? I mean, we know the right answer to that, but they may not. How long do you think it would take to mail a package to? And then they pick the place: New York City, Los Angeles, California, Africa, China. So we build those in for every experience. These questions go with the exploring together. And then when you go to the next page, we have more open-ended questions that go with these. So yes, we build open-ended questions into the lesson plans because we think it's so important.
and going back, one other question. There was someone asked about where the purple button is again. I believe, which one? Well, that was the post-assessment was the purple button, right?
Yep, so scroll down on the homepage on www.geewizeducation.com. And I sent everybody who's on this, if you were registered by 5:30 this evening, I sent you an email from me, bsmith@geewizeducation.com, that includes a link directly to the post-assessment as well as this. But if you go to our homepage, scroll down to watch videos to learn more, click on that, and then you're just going to scroll down till you see this one right here with the little boy. This is the why behind experiences that we're on currently. That's the handout, and there's the link to the post assessment. Okay?
Okay. All right. I don't see any more questions, but if you do have questions after we end the webinar, you can send them to customer service under the support tab, which Beth is showing you. Contact us. You can send questions there, and we'll try to get back with you as quickly as possible. We really try to work through emails rather than phone calls, just because we know that it's very difficult to talk with you during the day, but we really try to respond to emails as quickly as possible. But if there are no more questions, we both want to thank you so much for attending tonight. We do have an overall webinar, like Beth said, next Thursday night, and we'll be sending out emails to announce that, and we'll probably put it on the video page, or we'll let you know where that can be found on our website.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this as a recording, by then that
That'll be
webinar will
over.
probably be posted, and you can listen to that one too.
Yeah, right. So anyway, well, thank you so much for coming. And with that, I guess we'll end the webinar because we have no more questions. But thanks again.
Yep, and I will go out there right now as soon as I can here. I'm going to sign out of Gee Whiz. I will log in. I will activate the post assessment. If you cannot find it for some reason on the website, just again, check your emails, because you should have had one from me that had the link directly to it embedded in the email. But if you can't find it after that, again, go to the support tab under contact us, and it'll bring up this form, and we can make sure that you get that. But give me like 5 minutes. I should have it done in 5 minutes for sure. All right.
And
Thanks, everybody.
thank you. Good
Have a
night.
nice night. Bye-bye.